All right, welcome to the Erie Music History Podcast. I'm Chip Shell, your host. And today, my guest is Dave Dennison of today, the Jays, but back in the day, the 4 Jays. Welcome, Dave.
Thank you very much.
So, Dave, you are going to be one of the older guys that I've had on this podcast. I think you and Walt Slavinsky both are close in age. You are
82.
And we should really point out from the beginning, and this is different than what I normally do, you play probably more than I play these days. You're still playing these days with the Jays.
Well, we will have completed almost 70 shows this year.
Okay.
And I have 22 on the book for next year already.
Yeah, you are playing more than me. Yeah. So at 82, you're playing that much. That's awesome. We're going to get into the whole history because it goes back a long ways. It's funny. Normally, when I do this podcast, I tell the guests, listen, it goes from 1960 to 1989. And a lot of times after 89, they want to talk about what they've done since then, and we summarize, like we said today, you're still playing in the Jays. But today with you, we have to do it a little bit backwards because if I start at 1960, we're going to miss about 5 years of your career, important years of your career. So it starts back in
1956.
56?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so you're set the stage for us. 56, where are you?
I'm at Academy High School.
Yep.
Under the tutelage of Pop Grinder, who taught me how to sing harmonies.
And so I saw Pop's name in another note that I saw when you guys reunited. And was his first name Obed?
Yes, Obed L.
Was he? What was he? The music teacher?
He was the choir director. Yes.
Okay. All right. And so, you guys, what happens?
Well, Marty and Frank and Jerry and I were in the Glee Club as well as the choir.
All right.
And Pop formed us as a quartet. Correction, the fact that I came on later. I was a replacement after a few months. But in any event, he taught us how to sing harmonies. And then he booked us as the act to do the intermissions of the choral concerts because we were a traveling choir.
Oh, okay. So where would you guys travel?
Well, we went down to Westminster College. We used to do college concert type things, as well as around town to do assemblies and things of that nature. And, of course, the choral concert in conjunction with the band and the orchestra at the school itself.
Yeah, right. And so you mentioned those guys' names real fast, but we should mention their real name, or their full names are Jerry Wagner, Frank Salvaggi, Marty Day, and myself. Okay. And you had just mentioned to me earlier there was a gentleman a little bit before you for a little while.
Yes, his name was John Harvey.
Okay.
And John was a little bit older, and when he graduated and decided to leave Erie, he dropped out, and I came on board.
So when you are at Academy at this point, are you a freshman? What are you, a sophomore?
Yeah, no, a sophomore.
Sophomore. Are all of you about the same age?
Jerry, Frank, and I graduated together. Marty was a year ahead. We were Academy 58, Marty 57.
Okay, all right. So this is really important for the listener to understand how significant this was and how different it was from today. I mean, you guys were in high school. Your band teacher puts you together. You're going around to different events, like you said, but then it kind of grows from there really fast, it seems like, over those years. I mean, I start seeing mentions of, and we should say it's called the 4 Jays.
Mm-hmm.
And did you all have to go by, you went by Joe for a little while? Or?
Yes. Because the fellow that I replaced, his name was John.
Right.
And it was only Jon.
Okay.
So by changing the N to an E, it was Jim, Joe, Jerry, and Jay.
Okay, gotcha. So Frank was who?
Frank was Jim.
Frank was Jim.
Jerry is Jerry.
Jerry and Jay.
And Marty is actually Jerry also, but he went by Jay.
Okay, all right, gotcha. So we got the 4 Jays, and you guys are pretty quickly becoming pretty popular in town.
Well, at that particular time and point, there were a lot of teenage places around town. We did our first official appearance at a place called Schaffner's out on Buffalo Road, which is a teen hangout at that particular point. And the Hilltop Dairy Bar, which was across from the Jewish Center on State Street. Yep. And then Johnny Krevling, who was a predominant DJ at that time. He took over the State Theater down on State Street when it went defunct, and he put a place called the Outer Space Club in there.
I wondered where that was.
And then we came into doing like St. Joe's dances and St. James dances and the various places around town, primarily the Catholic diocese places that ran Friday and Saturday night dances, and then Wyco and Y Aztec and things of those nature.
Right.
That nature.
Now, today, you're a keyboard player in the Jays, but back then, was anybody playing any instruments in the 4Js?
No.
No. And were you just singing a cappella?
Well, we were singing a cappella a lot of the time, but then we picked up a musician. His name was Tommy Johnson.
Okay.
And we became the 4Js and Johnson. And the year that we graduated, the 4Js and Johnson played the Monterey Lodge in the Poconos.
Right.
Which is where the casino is today.
For 2 months.
Yeah. And then we also played a place down there called Rimrock, which was an after-hours play.
Okay.
And also the Alan Roth Steakhouse. And Alan Roth was the band leader for the Ed Sullivan Show.
Oh, wow. So what did Mr. Johnson play?
Keyboards.
So that was the only musical accompaniment that you had?
Well, and the house bands.
Oh. Okay.
Now, Marvin Mann was the house band at Monterey Lodge, as an example, and he had been with the Goofers in Las Vegas.
Okay.
So they were a first-class four-piece combo.
Okay.
And then Tommy sat in with them.
So when you're in Erie, though, and you're playing those different places, it's just you guys going up on your own?
Pretty much, yes.
And how long were these gigs? I mean, when you were still in high school, were they, when I would read about like you playing at the Club 2001 or something at 12th in Delaware, it said 200 teens showed up to it. And the highlight of the show was the 4Js. I mean, there's multiple acts on the bill for the night and you guys just are one of those?
In some cases, yes, but in that particular case, we did 3 hours.
Wow.
Some of the clubs in town that we used to play, we booked them through bookers. Sid Friedman out of Cleveland, Joe LaCastro out of Buffalo, Hillard out of Pittsburgh, and we played all inside that circle, which is the Jays are still playing today.
Yeah.
But it worked out. There would be a dancer and a comedian and us at the Calabrese Club or the Utman Corps.
Sure. But you're in high school.
Yes.
How late are these gigs?
Well, 9 to 1.
Oh, they were
10 to 2.
So yeah, it was.
In the case of the Sanger Band, we started at 2:00 in the morning and played till 6.
Yeah,
yeah.
Like we were just mentioning that you played with Joe Salarino and the Classmates later on, and Joe's told me stories of like when he and Dickie Buckle would play together in the Cows, and it was the same thing. Like they're playing at the Calabrese Club till 4 a.m. and having to go to school the next day. I mean, did the school obviously knew you guys had developed into a band that was getting paid?
Well, it was even a little bit better than that because we made arrangements with Academy High School. Our senior year, they gave us early dismissal on Fridays, and they let us come in late on Mondays.
I think Joe told me the same thing. What a great deal that was. How did the other kids feel about that at school?
Well, there was a little bit of jealousy, I think, behind the scenes.
And so the other thing I was going to say is, you guys weren't the only ones that were doing this at the time. There were other bands like the Contels and the Collegians.
There was kind of a rivalry amongst the schools.
Oh, was there?
At Tech and East, they formed a band called the Four Jokers.
Yeah.
And that was Paul Yakelin's original group.
Oh, geez. Okay.
And it was Bill Sinecki and Jack Hull and Paul and Romeo Gamo.
Okay.
And then the Continentals, which later became the Contels, they were out of Strong Vincent. And that was George Inopio, Gene Lyons, Tony Mezzacapo, Bugs Cope, and Mickey D'Amico on guitar.
Okay.
And then...
so Bugs goes on to play in the Epics.
Yes,
and
later on.
Right.
And Bugs is in California right now, not doing well health-wise. And then there was 2 groups out of Academy. We were, of course, the 4Js, and then there was a group called the Belvederes.
Oh.
And that was Bobby and Clive Bryant, and trying to think who Sluggo Dawson, who was later with Freddie and the Flashbacks.
Okay. First of all, I love the name Sluggo. That's awesome. Second of all, I'm going to point out to listeners, Dave has 0 notes in front of him. He is remembering these names better than I could read them off my computer. That's super impressive. I mean, are you still in touch with some of these folks?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Dave Wadsworth particularly, and Dave was not only part of a group called...
Sure, I jinxed you, didn't I?
Yeah, I think you did. It was Dave and Jerry Sinnott and Jerry Wagner after I went away to college, and Joel Clausen.
Okay.
And they had a follow-up band. But Wadsworth was the tenor soloist of the Singing Sergeants Air Force Chorus for 23 years.
Oh.
And he also played with us when he was back in Erie.
Well, when we're talking about the 4Js, and like I said, it was, 3 years you were together? 2-3 years?
4, actually.
4 years. So in 58, there's an article in the paper about there's a fan club being formed for the 4Js. So that gives you an idea of how popular you were. And, what happened with that? Was there an actual fan club that was formed then? Because I just saw the notice, like, hey, if you want to do this. And
yeah, a girl by the name of Shirley Wurst put that together.
Yeah.
And there was about 15 of them.
Okay.
All girls, crazily enough.
I love this story.
And they we played at a place called Skelly's at 26th and Cochrane, which was another teen place. Oh. And they would gather there. That was their headquarters.
Okay. Well, you said like these teen clubs were around. Explain to me a teen club, because I can't even imagine it. Was it just a place?
Well, the Hilltop Dairy Bar was probably the biggest one. And as I say, it was on State Street across the street from the Jewish Center.
Gotcha.
George Kwiatkowski owned that.
And antique car guy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was his.
Okay.
And he had a jukebox and a soda fountain and that type of thing.
Right.
And dance floor and the kids. But he would put it together for the kids. And that Outer Space Club of Johnny Kreveling's was a theater, so it had all kinds of space. Oh. They took a good bit of the seating out of it, but it had a floor that was on a tilt because, going down the aisle in this theater. And then Schaffner's was out there. There were any number of them around.
Huh. And were these just weekend gigs?
Well, primarily Friday nights, Saturday afternoons. We played at the Downtown Y on Saturday mornings sometimes, where you could get half a hot dog for a nickel.
Half a hot dog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They cut them in half.
All right. Yeah, in fact, that's so funny you say that. Like, I read in one of those articles that talks about at the teen club, there were a lot of hot dogs and hamburgers consumed, and, the 4Js entertained for so many hours and things like that. So
absolutely.
So that was the thing to do. That's really interesting. You just don't hear about it anymore. So in 58, you guys traveled to Cleveland and to New York City for award shows. You auditioned for the Arthur Godfrey Variety Show. Do you remember those?
Oh, yes. Trips? And the first one was in Cleveland. We competed on an amateur article, The Giant Tiger Show.
Okay.
And we won that one.
Okay.
And then the first summer that we were together, after I replaced John, we worked at a place called The Barn all summer long at Geneva on the Lake.
Oh, okay.
And then the following summer, we couldn't take that one back because we had bookings and contracts, other places that conflicted with the weekends.
Yeah.
But then the following summer, which is the year we graduated, that was the year for the Poconos.
Okay. And you had mentioned that you had like a booking agent, or you booked through an agent, right?
Yes. Sid Friedman out of Cleveland, Joe LaCastro out of Buffalo, Hillard out of Pittsburgh.
You guys are in high school. Were your parents helping out, or were you guys running the show?
No, the parents were not involved. We had a manager.
You did have a manager?
Her name was Donna Waldman.
Okay.
She's the one that booked us into the Poconos.
Ah, okay. Well, that's good to know. Was she a classmate or?
No, she was an older woman.
Okay, all right. So she handled all that part. You guys showed up, looked good. I got some pictures here. Y'all had to wear the same outfits, I imagine, right?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
which was the trend that,
right.
The four lads, the four aces, the big boys in the business, they all did that, so we did too. We actually used to change outfits between sets. We'd start out the first set in a tuxedo, go to a white dinner jacket the second set, and then a leather sweater for the final set.
Wow. And that was always how you did it.
Mm-hmm.
And so you win the competition in Cleveland. does that take you to New York City? Is that how you went there, or was that a separate thing?
That was a completely separate entity.
Oh, okay. What happened after the Cleveland competition? Did you go on somewhere else?
Well, we just became a little bit more better known. It was primarily publicity. And
it wasn't like a next step up. There wasn't another competition. So the Arthur Godfrey variety show was a big deal on TV back in the day.
Absolutely.
Yeah, like talk about that. I mean, how did you get that?
Well, that was, again, through Donna and a booking agent out of New York.
Okay.
And so we had basically a cameo appearance. But that's when both the Mariners and the Cordettes were on that same show.
And who were the Mariners and Cordettes?
Well, the Mariners were the first 2 black and 2 white gentlemen, and they kind of broke into that.
Okay.
The Dell Vikings were a little bit later. And as far as the Cordettes is concerned, they were a barbershop female quartet that did Mr. Sandman and a number of #1 hits.
Yeah. So did you guys just had a cameo on one of the shows?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
We only did one song.
Okay, gotcha. Have you ever seen a copy of it or anywhere? Or
I have the original.
You have original recording of it? Oh, okay. All right. That's cool to have. Yeah. So in 58, you guys graduate, right?
Well, 3 of us do.
3 of us.
The same. Marty was a year ahead.
Okay. So then you go to the Poconos, you play some out there for a few months, the summer of 58. What happens then?
Well, Tommy Johnson went out on the road. Tommy, by the way, through his entire life, did nothing but music.
Oh, okay.
And he just passed away here a few months ago, unfortunately. But he was a protege of Liberace.
Was he from Erie?
Yes.
Oh.
He went to McDowell.
Oh, he went to McDowell. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. And how did you hook up with him? Just knew him from Friends, yeah. And so he was a protege of Liberace. So
he competed in a worldwide talent show that Liberace sponsored.
Wow.
And Liberace made a comment to him after the gig. He said, "I hope we never play the same town on the same night because your left hand is better than mine."
Wow, impressive. So that's the guy you had backing you up.
But he worked the Holiday Inn circuit all over the world.
Oh, okay.
He was a traveling musician and whatever. And Marty went down to the islands. Jerry went into gospel work.
This is all post 58 then?
Post 60.
Oh, post 60. So in 60 you kind of break up?
We all went our separate ways. Okay. We all stayed in music one way or another.
Yeah.
And then I was in Kansas City, Missouri going to school.
Oh.
And working a night spot that booked national entertainment.
Okay.
And so when I came back to Erie, I was invited to join Freddie and the Flashbacks.
And when was this?
That would have been 1981.
Okay, so you were out of Erie for how long?
21 years.
21 years. When you were always in Kansas City?
No, I traveled with various corporate entities that I worked for. So.
And were you playing, when you say you were still singing, were you just singing or were you playing keyboards at the time? Or
I did backup singing for Damone Recording out of Kansas City.
Okay.
I backed some of the people like Vaughn Monroe and Frankie Lane and Vic Damone.
Wow.
Those people.
When do you pick up the keys? Had you already known how to play that? Did you learn piano when you were young? Or
I was actually a horn player.
Oh.
I played the full woodwind rack.
Okay.
Clarinet, sax, oboe, flute, piccolo.
Like when? High school?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I was planning to be in the Academy Band.
Yeah.
But the director and I had a little falling out, so I wound up in the choir.
Okay.
And if it hadn't been for that, I probably would never have seen the 4Js.
That's crazy. So when do you start playing piano then?
Much later.
Much later. Okay, that's interesting. Like in Freddie and the Flashbacks, that's, what do you say, 81, you're just singing?
Yes.
And explain to folks, we've mentioned Freddie and the Flashbacks on this before, but I've never had someone, I don't think Ricky was he in Freddie and the Flashbacks? No,
he was in the Classmates.
Classmates. So explain to folks what Freddie and the Flashbacks was, because they were around for a long time.
Yes, they were. It was a 5-piece vocal, and they started out with just a piano player behind them, but then they wound up with a full band later on.
Okay.
And they had some different people, Frank and I were both in that group for a while.
Okay.
And then Frank broke away and formed the Classmates.
Okay.
And then later on, I moved over with him, which is where I met Ricky Carr.
Gotcha.
Ricky and I were then together for 17 years in various bands.
Oh, wow.
So,
so Freddie and the Flashbacks, who was Freddie?
Freddie was actually a DJ that was in a frog costume. And he wasn't, it was like a mascot.
Oh, okay. But what type of stuff were you guys doing?
Oldies.
Oh, oldies. That's what I thought. Right.
But primarily doo-wop.
Okay. And like you said, you had like a backing band.
Mm-hmm.
And that band was together a long time, I think, wasn't it?
You bet.
Yeah. And did its demise lead to the Classmates, or were the two bands at the same time going on?
No, we were competitors.
You were? Okay. All right. So the Classmates, we've mentioned Ricky Carr's name a number of times on here. I've had him on here. Everybody knows Ricky. He's a great guy. Talk to us a little bit about the Classmates. Was it the same type of stuff?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We started out there again. The CDs that I gave you when I got here today still had 3 of the originals of the Jays in it. And Ricky was the drummer.
Okay. Yeah. And one of the things that we kind of skipped over, and I discovered this when I was doing some research on you, the Trespassers.
Mm-hmm.
Back in '59, I find something that you played in a band called the Trespassers at the Titusville Oil Centennial with Paul Patsy, Neil Myers, who plays in the Epics, right?
That's right.
Vinnie Frazzini
Mm-hmm.
plays in the Epics. You and Marty Day, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what was that? Was that just a one-off type of thing, or?
Well, it only lasted a few months.
Okay.
Paul Patsy's father was our manager,
Okay.
Guy Patsy, and we did basically the same thing, but there was never the camaraderie in that group that we were used to.
Yeah.
And so we kind of parted company.
Sure. And Neil and Vinny go on to play with the Epics probably right after that, right around that time. The Seventh Ring Barbershop Quartet, 1972. Ring a bell?
Oh, yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
I spent about 25 years also doing competitive barbershop singing.
That's what I was going to ask you is, that's a different type of singing, right?
Oh, it's all a cappella, number one. And it's all tight harmony, shooting a basis of music that has seventh chords in it.
Right.
And you try to ring those seventh chords. That's part of the competition.
And was that your first foray into the barbershop quartet idea? Or?
Yes.
Okay. And how did that come about? I mean, you're in that with Carl Granado, Jim Steinbaugh, and Dave Pratt. Is that right?
Initially, yes.
Initially, okay.
And then Dave dropped out, and Ron Pisner came on board.
Okay.
And Ron was well known because he was an arranger.
Okay. So this is, like I said, 72. You're back in Erie now. No, you're not back in Erie, are you, in 72?
I came back to Erie in 65.
Oh, okay. All right. So for a while you were gone. You come back, you're doing barbershop quartet stuff for a while before you get back into the Classmates or Freddie and the Flashbacks, right? Is that how it works?
Because I was in the Erie Symphonic Choir and doing just other things musically.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. Like,
I never got away from that.
Yeah, you never got away from doing something in music. You know, when I Google your name, there's a lot that comes up, you know, and you were involved with everything from, as we talked about earlier, you were a fireman for, volunteer fireman for how many years? 40?
Oh, better than 40 now.
40 years. And I saw a lot of things with the symphonic. Explain to me about that.
Well, the symphonic choir was Pop Grender.
Oh, it was.
And at that time, when I first got involved, and they needed tenors. So I wound up, I got tapped on the shoulder one day, and I wound up with them for, that particular choir I took on a 23-day concert tour to Poland, Czechoslovakia, and East Germany.
Holy cow.
Along with a barbershop quartet.
Oh, wow. Okay. So, yeah, I mean, that's a big part of your musical career is the barbershop quartet part. And did you miss doing the other type of stuff, or were you doing it at the same time?
If I hadn't missed it, I wouldn't have gone back to it.
Gotcha. All right. Well, One of the things we talk about, and I always try to go chronologically, so we're in 72, you're in the Barbershop Quartet. In 73, you co-owned the Pittsburgh Inn, right?
That is correct.
And so are you doing anything there, or did the Pittsburgh Inn have music back then?
No.
No?
It's not large enough to accommodate.
Yeah, I know. I didn't know if it was different than back then or not.
It sat 78 people, and it was crowded doing that.
Yeah. But it was popular. Yeah. How long did you have that?
14 years.
Oh, wow. You and Chuck.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. And so you're managing the Pittsburgh Inn. You're doing Barbershop Quartet. You're doing the Erie Symphonic Singers. You go to Poland in 75, like you said. Should we mention some of those folks, the Symphonic Singers? Paul Hackenberg, Eleanor Hiles.
Well, Paul Hackenberg was dispatch printing.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. He ran that.
Mm-hmm.
And am I right, Eleanor Hiles?
That's correct.
Is it Pearl or Paul Margol?
Pearl Margolin.
Pearl
yes.
Margolin. All right. Brenda Galt.
Mm-hmm. Well, Brenda later became the director some years later. She is now Brenda Dulwick.
Okay.
And I don't know I don't think she still plays in the Philharmonic, but she was second chair violin in the Philharmonic also.
Well, the Erie Symphonic Singers, were they related to the Philharmonic?
No, the Philharmonic Chorus is a separate entity.
It is, okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you guys were separate on your own.
Absolutely.
And where did you play here in Erie?
Well, we traveled.
Okay.
The Symphonic Singers was formed by Pop Grender in 1948.
Oh, okay. So this was not a new thing.
No means.
How many people were in it at any time?
50.
Okay. All right. So it was a big deal. And you would, do holiday concerts, local concerts, things like that. Okay. So you're doing that in the 70s. You're running the Pittsburgh Inn. You're in the Symphonic Singers. You're traveling to Poland. You're raising kids. You're at the same time you're a fireman, right? You dislocate your knee fighting a fire at the Legion at West 12th Street, right?
I got hit with a snowplow.
Is that what it was?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Is it the not the VFW, but which one is it on 12th Street? Right by the airport?
Yes.
So that one, that burned down, and that's why we have the new one there.
Yeah, the hydrant was across 12th Street, and I dropped off the back of the truck to hook up the hydrant.
Yeah.
And a state snowplow was coming out 12th Street. He hit the hose, and it wrapped around my ankle and dragged me half a block.
Holy cow. Wow. Well, like I said, your name pops up a lot when I do research, and that's how I found that out. And you didn't live far from there anyway, right? You were in...
No, I was... Well, that was Westlake Fire Department District.
Right.
And I lived at 10th and Shank.
Yeah, right. What about the Pensman? Barbershop Quartet, right?
Well, over the time, we had a number of different. Lake Country 4, Pensman. The Seventh Ring was the first one.
Okay.
But every time you changed personnel, you usually changed your name.
Okay.
And I was in about 8 different quartets over the time.
All right. So you never stopped doing that type of stuff.
For that matter, if we complete this in time, I may be at barbershop practice tonight.
That's right. We need to wrap this up, right?
No, not necessarily.
So at the time, like Barbershop Quartet to me is an older, type of music that you don't see that or hear that often anymore. I mean, obviously you have a practice tonight, but back then, was it more popular? Where were you performing?
Well, again, you did concerts wherever you were invited.
Okay.
The one thing about barbershop, and particularly quartets, is that if you happen to have a banquet and you're just looking for a 45-minute stand-up in conjunction with the banquet, or you have a sales meeting for a factory such as GE or Babtech, whatever, you would use an outfit like that because they can walk in with a pitch pipe and perform.
And be done, yeah.
You don't have all the setup and tear down that a band has and all the other. So it's a quick fix and a quality entertainment.
Sure. Was it that same situation, like even when you were in the 4Js? Did you guys have a PA, or was it just you guys singing on a cappella with no mics and no PA?
Either, depending upon what the situation was.
Oh, okay.
We had a group called the Joey J Combo. They were a 4-piece backup band, and when we needed them, or when they needed us, we used to do a lot of things together.
Okay.
That was Joe Alberstadt and Company.
Okay, all right. So we eventually leads up to 81, like you said, Freddie in the flashbacks, and then eventually into, it's the Classmates first, right?
Yes, 7.5 years I was with them.
Tell me who was in that band. I'm testing you, but I don't know.
Well, originally it was Larry Hardin, Ron Corsi, Frank Savaggi, and myself.
Okay. And does that evolve into, and Ricky's explained this to me, does it evolve into the upperclassmen?
Yes, it did. We that was the three Pontillo brothers.
Right.
Ralph, Tom, and Patsy.
Okay.
And Dave Walker.
Okay.
And Ricky.
Right.
And myself. And a kid by the name of Rob Heiche, which was Erie Insurance Exchange graphic artist.
Oh, okay. All right. So you do both of those for quite a while, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, we went from the classmates to the upperclassmen to the graduates. And then from the graduates, we moved right back to the Jays where we first started.
And that's what I was going to ask you. So how long has this version of the Jays, not necessarily the three of you as you are right now, but I mean, you reforming something similar to the 4 Jays, was it?
Well, Marty had passed away.
Right.
And so we were hunting for something, and we were able to put this together with the 3-piece, and it really works. So Doug's been with me 22 years.
Okay, that's what I was going to say. So
and John is in his 9th year.
Okay. All right.
So, and needless to say, we're busy. We don't very often play places, so we don't get invited back.
And so we should point out the Jays, John plays drums, Doug is the lead singer.
Mm-hmm.
And then
one of the lead singers. We all sing.
Yeah, but you play keyboard. Doug doesn't sing, or Doug does not play any instruments.
That is correct.
Right. So when did that band form?
Well, John came on board the 8 years ago, July.
Oh, okay. All right. So it was relatively...
And he brought in a complete new dimension to the band.
How so?
He is a tremendous drummer.
Yeah, he is.
But he's a better singer.
Oh, really?
Oh, he does some things that you wouldn't ever expect to hear out of a 3-piece combo.
Okay.
And, of course, we are noted for our close harmony and our vocal, and more so than the instrumentation.
Right. So that had to be a kick kind of getting... Did you come up with the name? Did you choose the name, the Jays, because it was similar?
Well, no. I looked at an Air Force film one day, and they had the missing wing for the one pilot that had piled up and gotten killed.
Yeah.
Well, then when Marty passed away, and we decided to reconfigure, we adopted the same format of having the missing wing and went to just the Jays.
Just the Jays. Gotcha. Okay. And those guys were a little bit younger than you, Doug and John.
Doug is in his early 50s, and
he is.
John is 69.
Okay. All right. Yeah. And like I said at the beginning of this, you guys play a lot, and you're having fun doing that. How about all these other things that you've done over the years? You're still in Barbershop Quartet?
No, I've had to leave that alone only because of the fact that most of what the Barbershop does is on weekends.
Okay.
And the band is
booked.
Busy, and we're booked. So I've had to give up a lot of things. I'm a past potentate of Zim Zim Shriners.
Okay.
Working with the kids, and I really enjoyed that. And I'm also twice exalted ruler of the Erie Elks Lodge.
Okay.
Past president of Harbor Creek Chamber of Commerce. I like giving back.
I guess so. You explained to me that you volunteered during COVID to deliver blood for PCL or blood bank or
community blood bank.
Yeah, community blood bank, and you drove all over the place doing that, and you stay busy at 82.
Well,
got to.
A lot of people that I know have taken retirement and gone home and become couch potatoes, and within a year or two, their system shut down and they're not here anymore.
Sure, right.
And I don't want to be one of those people. I realize sooner or later I'm going to get there, but I'm not in a hurry.
That's right. That's right. Good. Well, that's quite a career that we just blew through, and you are getting some texts from your barbershop guys, right? And so we're going to probably wrap it up there, I think. We covered a lot.
It's been a pleasure.
What did I miss? Anything?
Well, not unless we want to start talking about women.
That's a whole other podcast. I like that, but we'll talk about that afterwards. All right, Dave. Thanks for being on the podcast. I appreciate it.
Oh, what's going on?
Perfect timing. Thanks for listening, and special thanks to the JPT Foundation for sponsoring the podcast and for letting us use their events hall once a month for our free music night featuring the Fabulous Leftovers. They're a band of longtime Erie musicians who play for an hour and then are followed by 2 hours of an open mic. All the proceeds for the event go to the Second Harvest Food Bank. The music nights are held the first Tuesday of the month from 6 to 9 at the Events Hall, which is located on West 38th Street in the plaza right next to Our Lady of Peace Church. And finally, for information on what bands and musicians are playing in Erie and the surrounding area, please check out Jack Stevenson's Two-Man Happy Hour podcast and webpage. Jack gives you all the details you need each week on who is playing where. That's Two-Man Happy Hour podcast. So I'm Chip Shell, and I thank you again for listening to the Erie Music History Podcast.